Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily update for February 3rd, 2026. In 2010, the U.S. and Russia signed the New START Treaty for strategic arms reduction. The treaty reversed the ticking of the nuclear doomsday clock, the metaphorical device used by the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists to warn of the danger of nuclear war from unresolved aspects of the confrontation between East and West. When it was put into effect in 1947, it was set at 7 minutes to midnight. It's gone up and down since that time, from 17 minutes in 1991 down to 85 seconds to midnight today. As we're closer to the threat of nuclear war today than at any time since 1947. And the ticking of that metaphorical clock is speeding up as the new START Treaty expires in 2 days on February 5th. And there's been no response from Washington to President Putin's offer made in September 2025 to continue the negotiations after the deadline of February 5th. There's still no answer from the Trump administration to that request. In response, Dmitry Medvedev, who was the president of Russia when this treaty was signed, issued a statement that said that the silent, quote, the silence from Washington, quote, should still alarm everyone. The clocks are ticking, ticking, ticking. There are promising signs of diplomacy coming from other aspects of the strategic confrontation. The U.S., Russia, and Ukraine will have talks again in Abu Dhabi on February 4th and 5th. And the U.S. and Iran may have talks in Istanbul on February 6th. Yet it remains dangerous to put off the talks, especially given what's going on the ground. The U.S. has what Trump calls a powerful armada in place in Southwest Asia, and he issued warnings to Iran. As these warnings were issued, Russian and Chinese naval vessels were engaged in maneuvers, as were Iranian ships, possibly to prepare to shut the Straits of Hormuz. Meanwhile, a U.S. flotilla remains in place in the Caribbean, in case Venezuela does not continue the agreement that was made with Washington. And the fighting in Ukraine continues. And in spite of the ceasefire in Gaza, there are still people being killed there, as well as in the West Bank. So as the diplomatic initiatives continue, the government of Keir Starmer has issued new sanctions against top Iranian officials because the bankers and the oligarchs of the City of London do not want peace. They prefer the tension, and they prefer to continue whatever is necessary to keep the existing imperial system in place. They don't want to allow these diplomatic negotiations to succeed, because they don't want to halt these wars that they've worked so hard to continue. So we have a chance now to move before bigger wars desired by the neocons and war hawks are locked in. This is an urgent matter, as Scott Ritter has emphasized. Ritter, of course, having been involved in the arms control talks and the disarmament of nuclear weapons after the fall of the Soviet Union. He, among others, has made clear that this is an urgent moment for success, to lock in a potential for peace. Now, it was the potential of a moment like this that was memorialized by William Shakespeare in his play Julius Caesar, where after the assassination of Caesar, Brutus and his co-conspirators who murdered Caesar were prepared to move their troops into battle at Philippi against the forces of Mark Antony and Octavius. It was at that moment that Brutus said to Cassius, quote, "There is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows." Cassius responded by leading his forces into battle, in which they suffered a resounding defeat. But Brutus's warning was right. There are moments when action is required, and postponing it makes the situation worse. It doesn't solve anything to postpone these moments of crisis, but it's also necessary to act properly, to make the right decisions at the right time. And that was the lesson that Shakespeare was teaching us in that decisive moment in the play Julius Caesar. And that's where we are right now in the relationship between East and West, between Russia and the United States and China, the United States and Iran, the United States and Europe. That moment in the affairs of the tides of men where action is necessary, the right action. So a decision must be made as the clock is ticking. And the right choice is diplomacy. To sit down and negotiate a New START agreement, to negotiate an end to the Ukraine war, to avoid a new confrontation and series of strikes of the U.S. and Israel against Iran and Iran against Israel. Diplomacy to end the wars that are underway and prevent new ones. Diplomacy to build trust in relationship to the deployment of nuclear weapons, which have the potential to eliminate the human race on the planet. This was what was the center of the topic at the Executive Intelligence Review Roundtable Discussion on January 12th, when leading officials got together to discuss what diplomatic initiatives are necessary to avoid sliding into the 0 hour, sliding into midnight on the nuclear clock. And what was discussed was a series of proposals to renew the diplomacy and to move ahead to a whole new era of sustainable peace based on indivisible security and an architecture of economic development. The EIR put together a document on this and a declaration. And that declaration will be included in today's description section, where you'll have a chance to read it, to think about what was said. If you want, you can go to the Executive Intelligence Review and read the individual speeches and reports of the people who participated and circulate them. Because this is, as Brutus so aptly put it, a moment in the affairs of men when something could be done that will change history. So the time to act is now. It's a very short period. The clock is ticking, ticking, ticking. We are losing time. The deadline is 2 days away. It's up to us to form a coalition of citizens of all nations who wish to not only avoid war, but to establish the basis for a lasting peace. And that requires making the right decision at the right time. I urge you to study this declaration. Think about it seriously. Put yourself in the position of those in Rome at the time of the assassination of Caesar. Look what was set in motion by that decision to kill Caesar, and by that decision to then go to war against Antony and Cassius and Octavius. These kinds of decisions, these moments come very rarely in history. And if you miss them, if you miss making the right choice and acting on it successfully, mankind goes through a period of catastrophe, tragedy. And the tragedy is what? The decision that was made? That's partly the tragedy, but the bigger tragedy is that the population was not prepared to act as necessary, and they left it in the hands of weak people to make those decisions. So today you have a chance to act on the stage of history, to affect the affairs of men for now and into the future. Don't let this opportunity pass.